Session presented by Business Standard, R. Gopalakrishnan, Director of Tata Sons, in conversation with Mohit Satyanand. Session presented by Business Standard.
Thank you so much, Mani. It's an absolute privilege to welcome Gopal to this stage, which for just this brief minute I'm going to call my stage. And a special privilege because Gopal is the best boss I ever had, which is helped by the fact that he was the only boss I've ever had. And also one more accolade, he was the first boss I ever had. So now I'm going to start on a personal note, which is that 40 years ago, I believe we last met at a time when I'd spent about 4 years in Hindustan Lever, where you spent a great part of your career. And I had two parallel feelings in Hindustan Lever. One was that I was working in the best place in which to learn to be a manager. And the other is that I was a misfit. You were? That I was a misfit. It was fairly clear to me very early on that I was a misfit. And there was no feeling of acrimony against the organization. It's just that there was a mismatch between who I am and what. And it's something that I never really thought about until now in terms of preparing for this. Is there more space for innovation? Is there more space for thinking out of the box and for questioning the hierarchy? I think those are the kind of questions that troubled me at that point in time.
I use the word liberal, and without getting into a pedantic definition of what a liberal is.
Not interested.
Liberal is a person who can accommodate a very different point of view and yet operate without getting insane. And that's what I think is the basis of innovation. Hindustan Lever has this image of being a huge conglomerate, a multinational company. There are, at the edges of Hindustan Lever, all sorts of experiments going on, which have resulted in major new initiatives with the passage of time. And I use the word liberal in that sense. And to come back to your question, I am not of the view that large corporations cannot innovate and small corporations can innovate. And I think those companies which are able, or those institutions, why go only about companies? It applies to universities, it applies to schools, it applies to high courts, judiciary. I think those that let people at the edge of it experiment and discover new truths, as indeed is the culture of our whole nation, are the ones who tend to be innovative. And I think many companies fall into that category, many don't.
Even though it may be a loose federation, in the ultimate analysis, there is limited bandwidth at the level of the Tata Sons board. And therefore, you could say that yes, we have excellent companies in the hotel space, for example, and in the watch and jewelry space. But apart from that, it's a counterfactual. But was there an opportunity to focus on one or two spaces and become not just national, but global leaders, if that focus existed? I just want you to explore this idea with me a little bit.
No, you're absolutely right. Whenever you have a bunch of people who sit and debate, and one of the reasons I joined Tata was that was very much on the agenda. And we've had many, many debates in which I have participated, how much focus. But there's now that time has gone and I can look back dispassionately, Tata is very interesting. The people in Tata Steel are highly focused on steel, no different from ArcelorMittal. The people in Tata Chemicals are highly focused on chemicals. They don't give if I may use an extreme expression, they don't give a damn about software and hotels. Our hoteliers are world-class hoteliers with their flaws and aberrations like any human group of people.
Absolutely, no question.
And therefore you are able to go away from the rays of an incandescent bulb to an LED bulb, where there are multiple bulbs and yet they are focused.
So I see the point clearly, Gopal, but empirically speaking, the fact is that if you look at the world of steel making, Tata is not number one or number two or number three.
We are number 3.
You're number 3. Okay, you're number 3.
I think 2 or 3.
Okay, but
depends
in
on
trouble.
Which month's results you take.
In trouble right now, you know. And if you look at the world of hoteliering, and I believe from my limited exposure to class hotels all over the world, I think the Taj group of hotels is singular in terms of quality, but it's not a leading player in the world. And what I'm trying to actually ask over there is 2 sets of questions. The second one of which I haven't yet asked, which is, A, why is there something about the Tata structure that prevents some of these companies from becoming global leaders? And secondly, a broader question, which is what are the kind of issues, and that takes us into a different track, that prevent India from having leading companies in the world?
You know, it's a question that I have wrestled with.
I'm sure.
And if I had a pat answer, I would finish it in 3 minutes flat. But nobody would accept.
We can explore the next 6 minutes talking about it.
Where you come from determines a lot, or influences a lot where you go. So a person from Punjab may be very different from a person in Tamil Nadu. In the same way, there are some companies which are born in the womb of globalization, like TCS. And you go and talk to software people about India, and you get a certain kind of discussion. You go and talk to a hotelier about India, and you get a different kind of discussion. It all therefore comes back to saying, what have you determined yourself to be? And given the potty history, the patchy history of industrialization in India, I think most of the Tata companies, I would suspect most of the other Indian companies, other than Birlas, who went abroad, perhaps in some frustration with the Indian situation back in the 80s, most of them said, I want to be number 1, either in profitability or in volume or number of factories in India. Ratan Tata tried to break that, as you know, by the actions of the last decade.
Chorus Steel and JLR, notably.
Chorus Jaguar and all that stuff. The jury is still out whether that was the right move, but there is no doubt in the jury that it was a bold move. So I think Indian companies, we tend to forget that India became a capitalist type of business economy only 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
Yeah, no, I don't miss that.
And so there's a bit of time where...
But one could play devil's advocate and say that the same is true of China. That they also became part of the global capitalist economy maybe a few years earlier, maybe in the mid-80s, but they didn't have a significant march on us in that respect. So what is that mindset that you were referring to? You know, where you were born determines where you go, that allowed them to create global players and prevented us from doing so.
I think where China came from and where they want to go is a strong influence. I don't want to be defensive about India. None of us needs to be defensive. Sure. We are where we are and they are where they are. But one must first doff our hat and say you've done a damn good job to the Chinese.
Absolutely.
I don't think one can run away from that. You can go on saying they have leveraged their balance sheet excessively, but let's not go into that area. And China was singularly focused on becoming global. They said the Chinese market is not worth it, in a manner of speaking. And China thinks huge and big. Our mindset is a little more incremental. These are cultural factors, I suppose.
I know, exactly, but that's what I wanted to get to. So,
I mean, you look at the One Belt, One Road. Yesterday there was a session on One Belt. Who would think of a project which will be 100 years?
Right.
Where you'll put in, I forget the number now, $340 trillion.
Whatever.
I mean, I don't know how many zeros it has.
No.
I don't think we...
you sound like Sambit Patra.
Right?
You sound like Sambit Patra. I don't know how many zeros there are there. Anyway, no, I think this is very valuable. And in fact, you know, I was having a discussion right here at this very point in time yesterday with Amitabh Kant, who's the CEO of Niti Aayog. And he said that we have a protectionist mindset. And the two are not the same, but they are of the same coin, what you're talking about and what he is talking about. That you tend to restrict your view to what's happening in India. There's no easy answer to this. It's just an exploration of a thought. So to those young people who are sitting over here and aspire to be entrepreneurs, I think this is a very, very valuable message, which is think big, think globally, don't restrict your sights to India.
The Indian society, and by implication, I would be suggesting how somebody in government can look at it. And it's much easier to say it sitting on a
Fair enough.
dais in JLF. You know, India is the world's only colloidal society.
You mentioned that in your book. Yeah.
And
You'll have to explain that.
I have to explain colloid because everybody here hasn't studied chemistry, and if he has, he doesn't remember it. When I put white salt into water and dissolve it, it goes into solution. If I put white atta into water or sand into water, it will settle down. That's called precipitation. But if I took white flour and put it into milk, which is also white, it will turn blue. And it will not go into solution, it will not precipitate.
It is in suspension.
It's called a colloidal, and it reflects light differently from something else. And I say India is a colloidal society because every Jat, Dharam, you name it, they've been here. They probably come here before anywhere else. Christianity came to India long before Europe got civilized.
Long before. Yeah.
Jews came here long before. The Parsis came here far more recently. Each religion is sitting in its own little mahal, and yet it's a part of the whole. Yesterday I was at the Central Brain Research, day before yesterday, at the Central Brain Research Institute in Bangalore, and they showed me the genetic studies they're doing on 10,000 families, which showed that how the DNA is getting segregated into homogeneity, but there are 4,500 homogeneous groups living heterogeneously. Now this is a remarkable achievement which society has, and this is what we are fighting to preserve. If you
Absolutely right.
What
Absolutely.
is going on right now is a manifestation of fighting to preserve that.
Absolutely right.
So India is not 1.3 billion population, as many marketeers would say. We have 4,500 communities of 300,000 each.
What gives you the greatest hope for India, Gopal, over the next 20 years?
That we will do the rational after trying every other alternative.
And what gives you the most despair?
The short term. I worry about the short term. But I wish
Specifically?
Sorry?
Specifically in the short term.
No, the political turmoil that's being created when that energy, the frictional loss that's happening, which could be used for other purposes. Yeah, I worry because, in business we are trained to be efficient. In politics you must be trained to be effective. There's a big difference between efficiency and effectiveness.
Yeah.
It's always been very difficult for companies outside to enter India. And I wonder how that platform can be changed so that it's easier for companies outside who want to invest in India and be able to do business in India on a constant basis.
At a national level we struggle with this. And recently, you say the Prime Minister is making all his efforts, but one of the ministers says this particular company is not doing us any favor by offering to bring in $1 billion. I think there is a wrestling in our minds of whether we want or do not want foreign investment. That is a problem. उलझन हमारे दिमाग में है, बाहर में नहीं है. Economic policy में नहीं है. Rajiv Gandhi famously said that we allowed a trader to come in and he took over the country. That psyche is there somewhere. People refer to Hindustan Lever as a multinational. If Hindustan Lever is a multinational merely because Unilever owns 52% or whatever the shareholding, what is HDFC? Is it a multinational? 74% of HDFC is held by foreign institutional investors. But nobody refers to HDFC as a multinational. But people, including Baba Ramdev, the most respected yoga guru, who's now come into the field of business and commerce, will pejoratively refer to Hindustan Lever as a multinational.
But that's of course a business tactic.
Huh?
That could be partly a business tactic,
Could
right?
be. How easy is it for a startup to accept the strategy of building trust? My answer is, it is not difficult. A pain that you postpone in life will come back to you in a more harsh form later on. You have to build, whether you're a startup or a Tata or somebody else, I don't pay image. The moment you got an image of I can pay, the beginning of the end. I have worked in 2 companies only in my life, Hindustan Lever and Tata. I have come from there to there, wherever. I would have been, I'm not that stupid. If they were paying somewhere on the side, I would have known about it. but you've taken a position that I won't pay. And that is the beginning of building trust.
It's been a wonderful meeting after 40 years under very, very difficult circumstances, but really wonderful one.